everybody, glad you're here with me. We're going to talk about some new brushes today. I was actually sent a large set. Whoa, I'm knocking things over. And when I say large, I mean it is a very expansive set of brushes from Morphe. As you can see, there's a lot going on here. They're called Morphe brushes reimagined, and I'm not sure if this is a brand new thing or if they're just kind of newly sending them to me, because it said, the box said something about January on it, and I'm like, well, that's come and gone. But whatever the case, these brushes are new to me. I haven't used a ton of Morphe brushes. There's just a few in my collection that I use regularly, and these say Morphe brushes reimagined, new antibacterial technology, your best blends yet. And on the prices, it looks like they range from like $6 with some of the smaller eye brushes all the way up to, it looks like $18 might be the most expensive face brush. But this guide is very helpful because it'll say like what it's best for in terms of powders, creams, or liquids, and then it also rates the density level, like if it's really fluffy or really dense. Now it looks like this whole entire brush roll is available for like $250 if someone wanted all that. To me, this whole brush roll seems like way more brushes than you'd need for a full face. It's kind of picking and choosing maybe what you might need, and there's various like little bundles that they're selling with a more pinpointed offering, certain purposes, different things. But as I look at this, it's like, wow, there's maybe 5 different brushes I could choose from for foundation, 4 different concealer brushes, several different powder ones. So with this being my first time trying these brushes, I'm just going to try to work through a full face, and maybe in a future video I try some other ones that I didn't use this time. But yeah, I like brushes. I like talking about brushes. I like seeing how they affect the makeup application, so this is going to be fun. This is not a sponsored video. This was just sent to me in PR. I don't do sponsored videos. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get some primer going. I'm going to use my Refi Glow and Sculpt primer today. This is the one with the little roller. I really like this primer. I like the feel of it going on. It has niacinamide in it. I feel like it's got good for my skin ingredients, and I feel like my face maybe looks a little more chiseled after I use it, you know? So for foundation today, I'm going to pull out kind of a classic liquid foundation. I'm going to use my e.l.f. Soft Glam Satin Foundation. I have this in the shade 25 Light Neutral, and we have so many different options for foundation brushes. This first one in the roll, the M102, it looks like practically a duo fiber brush, and something I've noticed about several different duo fiber ones in this collection, the longer length that's extending out from the more densely packed bristles isn't extending too far. It's like a really short duo fiber quality, but might be good if you like a stippling approach. I'm really interested in this M103, this angled brush. It seems like the shape and size would be really good. Also, there's this M104. As you can see, a good size on that. Not too big, not too small. I might start with that. There's a foundation and body brush. That's the M105. A classic flat top brush, making you think of the Sigma F80. It seems like there's a good amount of movement with this, but yet it does still feel dense. I think that would be a good blender too. And then a rather large flat style brush. As you can see, it's very thin and flat, but that is the M107, and people who like, you know, kind of that painting method on the face might enjoy that. But I'm going to start with the M104, and I will list all of these down below that I've chosen to use in this video. So we're going to dab on a little foundation here. They also sent some new sponges, but I'm going to leave that to a future video. The amount of brushes is already overwhelming, so let's see how this works. I really like the density level of this, like feeling it cross my skin. I feel like I have a lot of control. And the size of it is rather large, like bigger than my Profusion buffing brush that I've been using so often. So I feel like it's actually getting the job done pretty quickly. It's large, but it's not as big as, say, if you have this guy sitting around, you know, that big Tarte Amazonian Clay foundation brush. A lot of us probably still have that from when that was a hot item. This is smaller than that, but it still just feels ample. Really big. I just got all around my face very quickly there. The blend looks good. I'm not so sure about preserving the coverage of my product. I feel like I took a real swipey approach, and maybe if I tapped it in more, I might have preserved the coverage of the foundation a bit more, because the coverage of this foundation can look a bit more complete if you're very careful about the way you put it on. I don't want to get this white brush roll dirty, but I am going to put that back in. For concealer, do you guys know what I mean when I'm saying duo fiber? It means like you've got a thickness of bristles and then like a feathery bit of bristles that are protruding above the main core of bristles. And with these brushes, it seems like they're doing that and they're keeping them very short. And I think that will create a good stippling effect, not so much a bendy, floppy effect that you sometimes get with duo fibers. So this is the M131. It's a little compact duo fiber brush for concealer. The M132 looks like a really nice and very dense shape and size there, good for tapping in concealer. And that's cut at an angle. Meanwhile, they have the M133 that is not cut at an angle, just a round brush. And also your classic flat concealer brush that people might use to just really pinpoint over a blemish or something like that. I'm immediately kind of intrigued by the duo fiber one and also this larger, dense angled one. Let's see how these handle a pretty basic and frequently used concealer for me. This is just my e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer in Light Peach. And first I'm going to use this really dense option. I love the way that angle is fitting around the inner corner of the eye. Can you see how I'm kind of placing that in there? I'm moving the product around. I'm loving how full that feels. It kind of reminds me of the one end of the Monge Duo concealer brush that I've used quite a bit. But I like having it on just a single brush. Actually, maybe I will leave all the ones that I've used out so I can chat about them at the end. Okay, and then I'm thinking, let's take the duo fiber. And with this brush being really like light, I'm wondering if it will do some blending, but maybe not over blend me and keep some nice coverage there still on my skin. I like that method, but I feel a little more in control and a little more able to fully and effectively blend with this one, which again is the M132. I kind of like the way they've labeled them. Like, they'll tell you concealer. This brush does say concealer on it. The whole handful of concealer brushes I've talked about say concealer, but more specifically, there is that M whatever code on it. Okay, there we are, concealer all blended in. I don't think it could be blended in any more fully than that. And I feel like this size is really able to fully get the job done for me, so I enjoyed that. Another thing I was thinking, by the way, was this brush for foundation, this M103. I felt like that could be kind of nice dabbing in over concealer too. A nice fuller size, and I like the angle on that too. Going into powder, we've got the huge powder brush, you know, the powder brush that you could practically see going all over the body. That would be the function of this for me. It feels massive. There's another large powder brush, but this one a little more controlled. It's pinched in at the top of the ferrule. This I could see realistically doing some face powder for me. Same cut, but just smaller yet. This is also labeled powder. So this is the M162 and then the M163. This you can really tell the lower density of bristles in this, and it feels just a little floppy to place it on my skin. And then here, the most compact brush labeled powder, you could see that coming in on the under eye maybe. That's the M164. So I think I'll start there and just use this to do some under eye setting. I've really been such a triangle powder puff person with my under eye setting powders, but today is all about brushes, so we're using the brushes. I'm going to use my Wet n Wild Photo Focus translucent powder, but this is the soft pink shade actually, not the translucent. Get a little bit of that powder on my brush. And this brush, look how mobile the bristles are. Like, it touches your skin, they really move and kind of bend around a lot. I feel like I'd like it to be a little more firm, more the way their classic under eye bullet brush is, you know? This one, there's a little flop to it. Like, it would be really nice for maybe a sheer powder touch-up. I kind of like it on T-zone, but to really pinpoint the under eye, I just would like a little more firmness to it. Is it doing the job? Yes, it is. Just personal preference on that. And they do have some smaller, like blush-sized brushes. I might encounter one of those that I like for this area. Also, there's a brush called Liquid Highlighter that I could even see on the under eye. Not every outlined purpose has to be the way you choose to use a certain brush. But my under eye is nicely set, not overdone. Maybe I'm just used to overdoing it on my under eye, and this light brush is pacing me a bit more. But okay, it did well. did well. I would like to see this M162 powder brush for some all over powder. So again, the bigger of the two brushes that were cut this way, and not totally as big as that M161. I'm gonna go into my e.l.f. Halo Glow Powder Filter. Light neutral is my shade here. I'm still not accustomed to the name of this powder. I'm just gonna sort of agitate the product a little bit with my brush there, and then use that large surface area to tap over my forehead. I'm liking that. There's a taper all the way down here. So when I'm putting it in my powder, I'm not just using the tip, I'm really using the whole side of that brush. It's a very soft powder. It doesn't take a lot to pick it up on a brush. And I'm just kind of dabbing it in. And I'm getting that light veil of powder that I like over the rest of my face. If I've already got foundation on and I'm using an all over powder, not just under eye and T-zone, but all over, I generally want a light application, and I feel like this is doing well with that. Keeping it light and just hitting a lot of my face all at once. Okay, we got a couple of different things labeled cream and liquid contour. One is looking a whole lot like my Sephora 56 brush here. I mean, I see a little difference, like there's a little more length of bristle here. My Sephora 56 feels like it's slightly stiffer than this brush, but I want to try it and see if I like it. But additionally, they have this brush for cream and liquid bronzer. It's a duo fiber, but look at that angle. There's a real surface area to it, a width to it, and also the angle. And I feel like that could be nice if you are dealing with a texture that's not too stiff. And then check out this one. So wide, but still giving you that kind of paw print effect, I guess. I could see that applying and blending a liquid contour pretty well. But again, I'm gonna start with this M204 because I really wanna compare it to the Sephora. I feel like I'm using a lot of e.l.f. in this video. That wasn't really by design. It's just what I happen to be grabbing out. I'm using my Camo Liquid Bronzer and Contour. This shade is light medium. I really like this product. It is potent, but I love the look of it once it's all blended in. So let's just start on the forehead and start moving this product around. Definitely not as stiff as the Sephora 56. Is that a bad thing? I'm not sure yet. It's definitely capable of blending this out, but you see how I'm pushing? I feel like it's having to push into my skin just a little bit more and make the brush hairs go like that, you know? Whereas if you saw the 56 blending on my skin, you really wouldn't see them flatten out that way. So my immediate reaction here is, can it get the job done? Yes, but does it feel a bit more out of control due to the little bit floppy nature of the bristles? Yeah, I might grab one of the other contour ones and try it on this cheek, but I am getting the job done here. Let's try this cream and liquid bronzer M242. This one has the duo fiber in it and looks just a little larger. Oop. I feel like I would love this for a thin serum kind of bronzer, like the Physicians Formula bronzing serum. It comes with a dropper, and those are very, very light and liquidy. I feel like this would do great with that product. Not that it's not handling this, but I want something a little stiffer. This is very pigmented. It really needs to be worked into the skin, and so far nothing in this kit's giving me that feeling the way the Sephora 56 is. But then if we're thinking let's do some powder bronzer, there is a brush labeled for that. There's this deeply angled M241. I feel like that would be terrific for powder bronzer. You could also go back to any powder brushes that you used on your face. You know, this large powder brush might be good for bronzer. Anything labeled powder, I think, has the potential to work for bronzer as well as just regular powder. But I'm going to try the powder bronzer M241 because I think this looks like a really good shape, size, feel. And I'm going to use that with some of my Maybelline City bronzer. This is my really sunny bronzer that I sometimes think looks good after you've already used a little cooler contour, and then you use this like it's classic bronzer. I like this a lot. Frankly, I think I'd enjoy this just for powder too. All over my skin, you know. I like that it's angled, but yet full. Bristles don't feel too floppy. Here I'm going to take this and kind of originate this bronzer at the hollow of my cheek, but mostly start working it up for the blend, kind of where I'd have blush. Right over the nose. If I were using a powder to contour with, I think this would be really nice too. Like I said, I'm going more the traditional bronzer route. I'm working it up higher, thinking about where the sun would hit. brush is kind of giving me missing piece vibes, you know, in terms of what I have in my collection. Like, this would be one I'd want to reach for a lot. Now, blush. Okay, we've got this powder blush, M201. She looks very delicate, very light. Like if you've got a super pigmented powder blush that you just want to be barely there with, I mean, there's so much bend to these bristles. There's a lot of length to the bristles, and that's going to result in, I think, a really light application. That's the M201. The M202, we're looking at that taper, but some flatness there, and still a really compact size on both. Both feel smaller than my usual blush brush. And then the M203 powder blush, we're looking at a domed style here. It is tapered, but it's tapering up to the tip. See what I mean? Rather than having that kind of laid back design. This feels like what I would generally get along best with across the board with powder blushes. I like the taper and I like the size. Gut reaction with both of these is that they're gonna feel a little small and a little out of control with the amount of give that those bristles have. So I'm going to take some Wet n Wild Color Icon blush. This is the shade Pinch Me Pink. This is their really nice cool pink. It does have a little shimmer. I can see the product laying down on the whole length of that tapered side. You know, it's tapered all the way around. And we're just going to pop this on. I feel in control of it. I don't feel like it's too big. I'm able to place that blush exactly where I want it. I have no complaints about this. Do I like it better than my e.l.f. blush brush? The difference being the e.l.f. brush has like sides. It's tapered here and I really like the shape and size. I'm very comfortable with that. This, it's like you could pick the powder up on any side of the brush and it's gonna lay down. It might lay down a little less full color compared to the e.l.f. immediately. And I think I'm just saying that because it's a little smaller, but it still feels pretty appropriate. M203. It's just interesting to use this with my other usual brushes in mind and think, what's changing the game? What's going to make me like actually want to swap out with the brushes I currently use? Because I have a very curated, very like, the brushes I use I really love. You see me use them again over and over. So far I'm not seeing a lot of situations where things are gonna actually beat out what I'm typically using, but maybe some. The final face brush in the lineup is the M282 and it says liquid highlighter, although I could see this being powder highlighter just as well. And I think it's kind of interesting that there's not another brush for that, although maybe they consider that one of these little like very small compact blush brushes, because there were two of those. Maybe they could see one of those being a powder highlight. I'm going to use this Milani highlighter that I'm very, you know, used to, very comfortable with, and see how this brush does. Wow, I laid down a lot. A little bigger than my Real Techniques setting brush. Here's the challenge these brushes are up against. I feel like I have a lot of loyalty to my brushes. Like this brush has been with me through thick and thin, this Real Techniques setting brush. It's lost the little bottom part and I continue to use it, wash it, love it. I'm so used to that shape and size. Like I've got a lot of brush loyalty. And these brushes are coming in, you know, yes, they've got their antibacterial qualities and whatnot, but they've got a lot of competition and I'm willing to try new things. I am sitting here trying new things, but I feel like I've got a lot more loyalty to certain brushes than I even do certain makeup products. But this is doing fine. This is doing a fine job. This is a good shape and size. It can totally execute your powder highlighter steps, but how would it do for a cream? The bristles seem a little bendy for that. I like a brush like this. This is from Real Techniques. I use this for my cream and liquid highlighters because see how it just applies that nice bit of pressure, and here it's just, there's a looseness. If you're needing to use a brush to apply brow products, we do have a very classic like angled brush, stiff brush, cut really fine. If you look at it head on, you can see it's like a very thin little brush, angled though, and then the spoolie. That's the M401. And then they've got the M402, which is like a silicone little, very precise rubbery brush. I'm wondering if that would be really good for laying down like some brow lamination gel or something. And then this little size, which is something I've never really explored for brows. I could also see that carving under the brow pretty well if you like to use concealer to get a really clean line underneath. So those are in there. I'm just going to use some regular brow pencil to fill in today, but just wanted you to know that's an option. Alrighty guys, I've done my brows. It's the Benefit Precisely My Brow Pencil and the CoverGirl Clean Fresh Brow Gel Wax. And then we're going to move on to just a real basic palette here. This is from Milani. It's the Gilded Mini called Champagne Problems. We have mattes, we have shimmers, light to dark balance is there, and it's just going to give us something basic to work off of as we try some new eye brushes. So I went through looking for actually the usual eye brushes that I always use from Morphe. There's a couple of flat brushes that I absolutely love. I'm not seeing those around anymore, so I guess we're gonna have to see if the ones in this set work out. Now for starting out in the crease, I'm looking at you, this guy. This is the M332 Eye Blender. It's a little pinched in at the ferrule. It's more compact than my Profusion brush that I would normally start with. Just a little less fluff to it, but I'm interested to see how this works. We have a couple of other just more full fluffy like domed blending brushes, but ooh, I'm liking the way this is just initially putting that toasty shade right in my crease. The blending feels really good. The size feels good. It's not too floppy, but yet it's not too stiff. That was really easy. Going straight into the crease. I like when they're a little pinched in at the top like that. I'm glad they made a brush like this because I feel like it just lends itself to the back and forth motion of crease colors. It's looking really smooth. I could easily use the same brush with the light shade and get right up under my brow and feel like I've got the control to do so. No complaints about this. I like this brush. Other brushes that could help you with blending or that some might like to use for that initial apply it to the crease step. This could work. It's just a little fluffier. It's the M333. You can see those bristles are a little longer, a little more full and fluffy. So if you like a larger brush for that. And then the M331 is also called Eye Blender. It's got more of a taper. See the difference there? Sorry, I'm losing a light bulb and a light over there, so if you notice an odd flash. But see the difference? Here's the one I used. That's got that slightly, ever so slightly flatter quality. This one, more pinched. You might feel some good control with that actually hitting the depths of your crease, but yet also being able to blend, especially if you turn it on its side. But it's the M332 for me. I really like that. Now, what about packing shadow on? I'm not seeing anything that's quite as flat as what I've been using from Morphe. Like this one looks like the same size, but you turn it and it's got a little more fluff to it. By fluff, I mean it's thicker. If you were to turn it sideways and then pinch it, you can see she's not going just whoop, super flat. There's a little more fluff. That's not always a bad thing. That's the M303 Eye Packer. I will definitely try that for shadow in the outer lid, but then we have two other sizes. M302, that's like the medium little friend here. You can see that those bristles are shorter. It seems like you'd have a lot of control with that one. So if M303 doesn't feel like enough control, I might go down to that. And then there's an Eye Packer M301, smaller yet. And yeah, I could see that going around inner corners or whatever. I could also see the 302 being good for that. So yeah, these are our flat brush options. Let's just use them and see. I'm going to go with the largest of the three I just talked about. That's the 303 with my darkest shade and see if this can pack on the way I like to see my other Morphe brush do. What that little bit of fluff might be helping with is like getting up to that crease maybe even more fully and almost making it look a little blended in the process, if you know what I mean, rather than being like, okay, I'm going to lay the product down with one brush and blend it with another. I'm not saying you don't need to still go on and blend that, but the bit of thickness that this brush has, it's kind of leading you into that blending. It is able to pack on to my liking. I go a little at a time. I mean, let's face it, I'm going to need to replace my current faves because, I mean, they're not being sold anymore. Just for the purposes of if people are watching what I'm doing and they want to follow it and they want a good recommendation, this is good. I can flip it, I can pull the product up and not really leave myself feeling a lot of need to blend. That's pretty good. Now, is there something really small that can go in there? Well, they've got this brush. They've got this M383 Eye Detail. And as I was looking at this last night, I thought, okay, is that the equivalent of my Profusion small pointed brush. It feels a little stiffer and it's a little smaller also. The Morphe one is making me think more classic pencil brush vibes, like would be ideal. Smudging shadow on the lower lash line, but it's not feeling full enough or mobile enough to go into your crease and like blend that out a bunch. What I would do if I want my crease to look blended after using a flat brush application, I would go back to this guy, this brush that first did our crease color. I just go back in with that, blend around a little bit, or possibly add a little more if that's the look I'm going for. I've got this nice rich shade right here, like I might take a little of that even and work that into that outer corner crease area. Pretty toasty. I'm super impressed with this M332. The one that's got that pinch at the top, great for crease work, just great for anything going up and around that crease. And then getting back into our flat brush discussion, this one, honestly the smallest, probably a little smaller than I even need it to be. I would go to the M302 and let's put a shade on the inner lid. Let's take like some of this gold, see how it does with the shimmer. Put it on. Yeah, that's a fine shape and size for working in the inner corner. Good. I mean, no complaints. That's a very basic brush. It's just a little less flat compared to what I'm used to using in this area, but it can do that kind of swiping motion, so you really feel like it is laying down product. Fortunately for me, they added a little fluff to these, but they didn't make them too fluffy. Next, I would circle back to that brush that I said felt like a pencil brush, and then you could go in with, you know, your dark brown, get a little bit of that on there, and it feels kind of like eyeliner, you know, but smoky eyeliner. This is not feeling like a replacement to my Profusion small pointed at all, because I like that brush and it manages to be able to do what I'm doing right now, but also just be super good in the outer corner. And same with my Profusion crease brush. You know, this wasn't needing to be replaced, and it's available at a super affordable price point as part of a trio. Gonna cost you less than the Morphe brushes, but it's certainly still a good option. If you wanted to get into upper eyeliner, we do have some stuff there. It's the M362. This is what you'd put into like a little pot of a cream or gel liner. Looks like it would be very good. That seems like it's cut really well. It actually has, even though it's tiny, you can see that it has a little taper even. There's a little eyeliner brush here that actually appears to be duo fiber. It looks like something from Real Techniques. Has that little softness that, you know, if you wanted to take a dark shade, let's just do it. The dark right here. And apply it along the lash line. Like you're getting kind of a soft application. Whereas the brow brush that was cut at an angle was just straight fiber, boom, cut. This I feel like gives you a little softer application. If you're doing powder with cream, it would probably still be pretty precise and pinpointed. And the last brush that I haven't mentioned yet in this whole kit is the 382 Eye Detail. This makes me think smudge. So a couple of smudgy options I think are the one I used on the lower lash line that I referred to as a pencil brush, and then I think this would be really good there too. This is also fairly flat though, so if you had something like, let's pretend this was a shimmer, but you know, you can use matte too around the inner corner. You want to lay something down on your inner corner. It's a pretty good size for that too if you're needing something very small, but yet you don't want it to be too pointy or angled. Okay, I'm gonna finish off my look with some mascara and my lip color because there's not a lip brush in here, and then we'll chat about the favorites and just what really stands out from this kit for me. Okay gang, so here's what I did. I used my Lash Princess False Lash Effect on the upper lashes, e.l.f. Lash Extender on the lower lashes, and this is from NARS. This is the Dolce Vita, I think it's called Afterglow Lip Balm. I shot my stash for this one. You may have noticed I'm rediscovering some different tinted lip balms. That's a drawer that I just kind of decided to pick some things out of and put it in my front of mind lip holder out here. And I think this one's really shiny and pretty, just smooth. That's all I have on today. So as far as these brushes go, did they create a great look today? Yes. I'm not feeling like I'm unblended. I actually feel very fully like done. The brush set as a whole is about options. It's not something everyone would need at all, to have like a bunch of different different options for each step of the makeup. But it's fun to bounce around and try. I think I'm going to have fun using some of the brushes that I didn't use today in future videos, or just future, times when I'm sitting here applying makeup. For me, overall, my takeaway is I'm more into the eye brushes than the face brushes, simply because personally in my collection, that's where more holes are, especially considering that Morphe apparently isn't making 2 of my daily use brushes. So now I'm looking at these thinking, okay, what else you got, Morphe? Biscuit's gonna sniff them all out. But it seems like they still have some really good flat brush options. And I also like their crease brush too. Really enjoyed the M332 that I started out in the crease with, and also this M303, that largest flat brush, I thought did a really good job. And then just a little downsized from that, the M302, like, yeah, those are gonna be able to jump in and do some work for me here and there. I definitely have some unfinished business with this kit where foundation and powder brushes are concerned, because there were so many different options. I did enjoy, though, this M104, this large foundation brush. As I just look at what I've got here in my collection, I feel like it's kind of unlike other stuff that I have. Like I mentioned with the Tarte, like that giant brush, I have a lot of things that are smaller, but this is kind of a nice middle ground for me. That would also fall into my stack of brushes here, my pile of brushes that I was most impressed with. Definitely enjoyed the concealer M132. I thought this was unique and a really perfect shape and size to get the whole concealer job done. You often see me use a double-ended brush and go back and forth, which I like doing. I think that's fun. This definitely feels like a one and done concealer brush to me. The Duo Fiber Concealer wasn't all that amazing. The smaller powder brush, the one I set my under eye with, did a good job, but I'm not like floored by it. The one I used for highlighter, I don't like it better than my Real Techniques setting brush, I'm sorry. We used this large powder brush, this M162, and I thought it was good for sheer overall application of powder. The brushes I might currently go between for that, like a BK Beauty 107 or a Sephora angled brush, these are both putting a little more on. See how they're a little smaller? They're getting a little more product on your skin as you use them. This one, larger surface area, but feeling like a sheerer application. Wasn't sold on either of the brushes that I used for the cream contour. Definitely not putting these back in the right spots in the brush roll. The powder blush was good, better than my e.l.f. blush brush. Not necessarily, but I really like the powder bronzer brush, M241. This was a really good shape and size for bronzer, and frankly, I'd be more likely to reach for this for all over face powder than that larger brush like this. This is more my speed where that type of brush is concerned. Like, I like the size, but it's a little smaller. So if I had to narrow it down to just a few faves, like what's immediately jumping into my brush stash, it's this one, that powder bronzer, and these 3 eye brushes. That's a top 4 for you there. Still might uncover some other favorites among those brushes I haven't used yet, but that's where things stand now with these Morphe new brushes. So thanks for watching, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative, and I'll see you again very soon. I love you. Bye.